Mr. Loveday's Little Outing by Evelyn Waugh. All you need to know. Mr. Loveday's Little Outing by Evelyn Waugh is a short story that revolves around the theme of madness. Here are 10 things you should know to understand the story better. Number 1. Who was Evelyn Waugh? Evelyn Waugh was a British satirical novelist and a short story writer born in London in 1903. According to Marcel Decoste, a professor at the University of Regina, Canada, and the author of The Vocation of Evelyn Waugh, Faith in Art in the Post-War Fiction, Evelyn Waugh is recognized as one of the great prose stylists of the English language in the 20th century. Number 2. What's the gist of Mr. Loveday's Little Outing? Visiting her father, who has been in an asylum, a mental hospital, for many years for trying to take his own life, Angela meets Mr. Loveday, her father's caretaker. Although Mr. Loveday is also an inmate, or a patient, for having killed a young woman quite unknown to him, whom he knocked off her bicycle and then throttled. Angelina thinks that the 35 years Mr. Loveday has spent in the asylum has cured him, so she arranges for his release. Number 3. What are the themes of the story? The main theme of the book is, of course, humor, but that isn't the only theme. There are themes of madness represented by Mr. Loveday himself. His behavior, attitude, and apparent sanity interestingly exaggerate his madness the further on the book goes. As the story progresses, we realize more and more that Mr. Loveday is certainly not now sane from being in the asylum. Number 4. How does the short story portray positive relationships? Angela, aptly named, tried to build a relationship with her father despite her emotional problems. She also has blind faith in Mr. Loveday and is immediately willing to trust him. She sees and wants to believe the best in people despite what logic would dictate. Is she so blindly positive because she is so depressed herself? Perhaps. Number 5. How does the story portray negative relationships? There is one common sub-theme about negative relationships throughout the book. We don't initially realize as we take Mr. Loveday at face value, but in fact, he has been manipulating Angela since their first meeting. There has always been a struggle for power and control, even if it wasn't immediately apparent. Angela's father may not have intended to affect her negatively, but the relationship is at a net loss for Angela. She gains very little from visiting him. Number 6. Why did Angela's father try to kill himself? Angela's father recently returned from fighting in World War II. The horror and stress of what he went through, what he saw, and how he struggled to deal with it all contributed to his attempted suicide. The story may be satire, but this is an accurate representation of what happened to veterans of this ghastly war. Soldiers all suffered from horrendous PTSD, though there was such a worldwide problem with the post-war traumas of the everyday man, very little time, effort, or money was put into combating it. Number 7. Is Angela sane? Truthfully, probably not. It is hard to say when the story is so obviously satire whether she is clinically mentally unwell or if she was just naive to drive the story. The arguments to be made in favor of her being sane are few and far between. She made the conscious decision to trust a clinically insane murderer, so whether or not she too suffers from insanity can rightfully be called into question. Number 8. Is Angela's name important? Her name is derived from Angel, just as the other characters are not so subtly named after their traits. Lady Moping, who spends her time moping, Mr. Loveday, who would love to spend a day outside of the asylum, Lord Moping spends his time moping, not that he is fully aware of that. Angela spends her time during the story doing angelic deeds, visiting her father, spending the day with Mr. Loveday, etc. Number 9. How are social classes shown in the story? The biggest example of social classes are shown in the names. Lord and Lady are not titles that just anyone can have. As mentioned above, mental health care was not in abundance post-war. The very fact that they could afford to house Lord Moping in a country estate/asylum is a great show of wealth. Comparatively, Mr. Loveday is not a lord, so this difference in social classes immediately puts Mr. Loveday below the others. Number 10. Conclusion. Once released, Mr. Loveday goes on his outing and does the one thing I often wish I could do. You mustn't ask what. It wouldn't take long. Find out what Mr. Loveday's plans were and how the story ends by reading the short story.